lives in a lovely neighborhood. If you live there, they say you're living good. Pretty lawns with fancy landscapes. She stares ahead with a blank gaze in her lovely neighborhood where the living is good.
And welcome to our neighborhood. This is Marc Gertz, and you are listening to Reverse Your Thinking on KMET Radio. The music at the top of the show was Angie Wells. It's from her new album, Truth Be Told, which is on the Jazz and Blues charts at number 24. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend you give it a shot. We've got a great guest coming on the show today. His name is Jeff Wildstein. He's a daily money manager. And I already hear you saying a daily whoosy watsy. And I'm going to let him explain that to you. But yeah, Jeff is a daily money manager, and this is definitely something you want to hear about because it might be time for you to reverse your thinking about using one. I came across an article about the top 10 reasons that baby boomers are choosing to stay in their homes to age in place. Without going into a great bunch of detail, the top 10 reasons were freedom, safety, healing, control, personalized service, comfort, healthier, safer, and happier life, community, advanced technology, and independence. And what's interesting to me about that is that what is the alternative to aging in place? Well, the alternative is looking into some type of a community or communal living environment in either a senior community or assisted living, and 8 out of 10 baby boomers are negative on that as an option. And I'll tell you what concerns me about that. How many of those baby boomers have ever visited an assisted living facility? How many of them have ever gone on a tour? How many have ever gone to Leisure World up in Laguna Hills and checked it out? I'm willing to bet you if 1 out of 8 has done that, it's probably a lot. People have a negative knee-jerk reaction about things. People seem to have a negative knee-jerk reaction about assisted living or senior living in exactly the same way they have negative knee-jerk reactions to reverse mortgages. They don't know why they're against reverse mortgages, but they are. And they don't know why they're against assisted living, but they can give you all the reasons that it's a bad thing. How many of them have ever checked it out? I'm becoming of the belief that that certified financial planners need to take a stronger role in this. I think a lot of people, a lot of boomers that are 55 and up, although I guess at 55 it would be the generation after, but regardless, need to bring this question up because most retirees do not have enough money to retire on. And if they get sick, it's even worse. Most retirees do not have the cash that they need to convert their houses to make it safe for them to live. And I also believe that most retirees haven't really looked at what that means. Aging in place, we make the assumption that the way we are right now at age 50 or 55 or 60 or 65 is the way we're going to be at 80 and 85 and 90 and 95. And I got news for you. That's just not so. You know, the joints start to creak, and the ability to stabilize becomes problematic. The hearing starts to go, the eyesight starts to fade. Things become a problem. And the way I look at it, when you have children, you child-proof a home. You child-proof a home. There's a really great commercial on TV about that right now. I can't remember what the product is they're selling, but it's a commercial with the husband going around on his knees all through the house, acting as if he's, an infant just learning to walk, and they're trying to childproof against the problems he might find. That's the reason that we put these little plastic buttons in electric outlets, right? Because we know, we don't think, we know that our kids are going to put their fingers in those outlets if we don't plug them up. Well, in exactly the same way that we childproof a house, we need to prepare our homes for retirement. If you really want to age in place, you have to, when you're in your 60s, you have to begin to anticipate what you're going to need when you're in your late 70s and your 80s. You need to take a journey there and look at what that is going to feel like and be like. And you need to figure out what those things are, and most importantly, how you're going to pay for it. We're going to take a commercial break here, and when we're back, we're going to dig into this a little bit more. You're listening to Marc Gertz, and this is Reverse Your Thinking. And we're back on Reverse Your Thinking. I'm your host, Marc Gertz. I'm a mortgage broker in Los Angeles County, California. We cover the entire state and beyond, and we specialize in reverse mortgages. So a great many of the people that we are in contact with on a regular basis are older, baby boomers, millennials, and so forth. Before the break, we were talking about what aging in place means, what you have to really consider when you say things like that you want to age in place, especially considering the fact that, this is 2023, and the entire baby boomer generation, everybody from the baby boomer generation is going to be 65 and older by 2030. And a good portion are already talking about having trouble in their current homes. 28% of older adults have trouble using some part of their home without assistance. While 94% of over 100 million homes in the US had at least one aging accessible feature, a 2020 Census Bureau report shows that just 10% were ready to accommodate older residents. In other words, they had an entryway with no steps, a bedroom and a bathroom on the first floor, and one or more bathroom accessibility features. I know this isn't fun stuff to talk about, but 80% of you want to age in place. And I'm willing to bet you that if you ask people from younger generations, they're going to pretty much say the same thing. It's a knee-jerk reaction. You want to stay in your own home. You want to stay in what you know. But as I was saying before the break, just like we childproof a home when we have new kids, we have to, I don't know, what would you call it? What would be the equivalent of childproofing a home when you're a senior citizen? Senior-proof a home? I don't know exactly. We have to come up with a phrase for that. There's got to be a phrase for that. But there are things that you need to do in a house in order to function, folks. I mean, the reality is the joints don't bend the same way they used to. I mean, it may sound crazy to those of you that are not there yet, but the idea of just getting into a bathtub, stepping up into a bathtub becomes very problematic for a lot of people. It really, really does. And if you've got a 2-story house, or you've got facilities that you need that are on a second floor, this is going to be a problem. So you need to be proactive about these things and figure out how you're going to handle them. The other thing that you have to be proactive about is the fact that your generation is going to die. Yeah, I know we're all going to die, but you know, my dad passed away at 97, and by the time he passed away, all of his friends were gone. Most of the contemporaries in his family were gone, and those that were still alive, they didn't live close enough to ever see each other. So to a very great degree, he was isolated in his house. Yes, he pretty much stayed in his own home until he died. The last 6 months he was in assisted living against his will, but there was no alternative at that point that made any sense. But more importantly, even if there was, the point is, when all of a sudden you don't have the same accessibility you had before, maybe you've gotten to a point where driving is problematic, walking is problematic, getting out of the house by yourself is problematic. Now all of a sudden you're isolated. Yes, you're aging in place, but that's the only place you are. There's a lot to be said for being in a community. There's a lot to be said for being proactive and looking into senior communities before you need them. And if any of you are listening to me and you're in your 20s and 30s and 40s, guess what? You're not too young to take a look at it now either. If not for yourself, then for your parents or your other relatives. There is nothing wrong with being educated and taking the time to figure out what the right decision is. You may enjoy being surrounded by your things, but if you're a people person, if you like being with people and you have no way of getting out, or it's problematic, then guess what? Being surrounded by all of that stuff in your house, being in the same space that you've been in for the last 20 years might not be the happiest solution. You might be much happier in an environment where you have friends. Now, I'm not saying all those friends have to be your same age, but you might be better in an area or a community where you have access to more of the things that you want to do. What it really boils down to is whether you want to age in place or you want to move into a community, how are you going to pay for these things? And one of the things also that you have to take into consideration about when you get older is, how are you going to pay your bills? Are you going to have the presence of mind to be able to do that, to be able to take care of your finances as you get older? And after the break, we're going to talk to somebody that's going to talk with you about a great alternative, a great economical alternative that you can use to accomplish just that, whether you want to age in place or you want to join a senior community. My name is Marc Gertz. You're listening to Reverse Your Thinking, and we're going to reverse our thinking on daily money management when we get right back after this. And welcome back. This is Reverse Your Thinking. I'm your host, Marc Gertz. And I'm happy to introduce our guest today is Jeffrey Wildstein. Jeffrey is the owner of KAVOD Daily Money Management. He provides personal help with bill payment, budgeting, Social Security monitoring, medical billing resolutions, insurance claim processing, credit card and bank account reconciliation, and more. Interestingly enough, he has a very, very mixed bag of a background, including being a rabbi with extensive training and experience in pastoral care. And Jeffrey, if you don't mind, I'd like to start off there, and maybe you could share with us how you made the journey from rabbi to daily money manager.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate
pleasure.
it. So, like many people, over the course of COVID, I was looking for what was going to be my next project, what was going to be the next thing that I was going to do. And during this time, unfortunately, my father passed away. And he didn't pass away from COVID, but it still was, difficult during that time, and the travel and everything to deal with everything that went on with my dad's passing. And my mom came to me and said, for over 50 years, your father took care of all the finances, all the money, making sure that everything was okay, balancing the checkbook, making sure that everything was paid. And now that he's gone, I've never done it. I don't know how to do it. And to be honest, I don't want to do it. Jeff, will you do this for me? And I said, of course, yes, I will do it, and I will help you. And I think many people in both sides of that generational difference have that sort of situation. But as I was doing it, I realized a few things. Number one, it's complicated. It's a lot of work. You really need to know what you're doing, and you really need to have the organizational skills to be able to handle everything. Number two, a lot of people have this need. I remember when I was a congregational rabbi that people would come in and talk to me about their family issues and what was going on, and there was always something financial involved with it, and I had nobody to refer those people to. There's a need for people who are there, who are going to help people and families deal with these issues, these situations, these circumstances, and to keep everything going and to keep people happy. And that's daily money management. So I decided that how I was going to help people was to be a daily money manager.
Okay. I get that. But what's the difference with a daily money manager and a financial advisor or a wealth manager or a money manager? I mean, is there a distinction?
There's a big distinction. It's a great question. And they are two totally separate things, even though the names are very similar. A money manager is somebody who takes care of your investments, gives you advice, and makes sure that you have the money that you need so that you can live in your retirement when that time comes, or as it's coming now. And at the end, they send you a check or make a transfer and say, here, these are the dollars that you have for the month, and that's it. But you may not be able to be sure about that it's going to the right place, or that all the bills are being paid, or that everything's going according to budget, or that insurance claims are being processed. That's not what a money manager does, but it's exactly what a daily money manager does. I like to say it's like having your own personal financial secretary.
Okay. All right. Is this when I was talking earlier on the show and I introduced you, we were talking about these things through the lens of retirees, okay, people aging in place, or on limited fixed incomes. Is that are those the people that daily money management are those only the people that daily money management is for?
No, that's certainly a big part of the people that we serve. People who are aging in place, people who are in their wonderful golden years, who need help in making sure that everything is taken care of and everything is done. But we also work with busy professionals, young people or people in their middle age who are so busy with everything that they're doing that they don't have the time or the energy or inclination to do these sorts of things for themselves. I also work with people who have special needs, who can't do it by themselves and can't handle their finances and need somebody to help make sure that everything is done. And there's various other situations, military personnel. So for example, sometimes people, one spouse is deployed overseas and the other spouse is still working and taking care of the kids. and to go home and then try to take care of all their bills and finances and make sure that everything is okay, it's just too much. So there are various different ways and different people where we can be of service, and we could be a big help.
Okay. I'm familiar with business managers in Hollywood. A lot of celebrities have business managers that are CPAs that do some of those things for them, or can. All right. And as far as like financial secretaries or having executive assistants, I know sometimes, executives will have that. Where does a daily money manager fit in between those things? Or in other words, why would someone want a daily money manager instead of, let's say, a business manager?
Well, first of all, they may not be a business themselves. They may be, an individual, or
Okay.
they may not have the amount of funds and wealth that needs somebody at that level. Certainly,
Okay.
personal assistants are something that I think the average person, at least out here on the East Coast, wouldn't have. A daily money manager is a professional who helps people of all different statuses in our
Okay.
economy. There are some daily money managers who only work with, high net worth or ultra high net worth people, but there are also a lot of daily money managers, including me, who are working with lots of people, just the same way as they have their lawyer, they have their accountant, they have their caretakers, and they have their doctors. They need somebody for their finances, and it's not quite the same. There's some overlap.
Okay. Well, is a daily money manager then just a bill payer, or is there more to it than that?
There's much more than just paying bills. Certainly paying bills and making sure that those are done and that those are paid on time is a big part of what we do, and it's very important. But a lot of people have insurance claims that need to be tracked to make sure that they're getting the reimbursements and that things aren't getting lost by the doctor's office or the insurance company or anything else. There's keeping track of all the paperwork and making sure that it's all organized. I sometimes ask people, do you know where all your paperwork is? Do you know where your will is? Do you know where your safe deposit box key is? If you needed your insurance declaration page, would you be able to just pull it out at a moment's notice? These are some of the things that daily money managers do. Another thing that we do is we help people with fraud and scam prevention, so that I know when I talk to my clients, I say, if you get a phone call, if you get an email, before you click, before you call, before you talk to me, because that way here is a person who can help as much as possible to avoid people, particularly our elderly, becoming victims of scams.
I see. Okay. Well, what would cue somebody? How would somebody know if they need a daily money manager? I mean, when would the light bulb go off, so to speak?
If you find that you're missing bills, that you're missing payments, if you find that there are situations that arise with your finances that it's just so frustrating and you can't figure out how to make it work, or it's taking such an enormous amount of time that you really don't want to do this, that's a good time for a daily money manager. I was talking to somebody the other day, and when I said, you mean you'll make sure that everything is paid, and you'll make sure that you'll make the calls for me, and you'll make sure that everything is fine and I won't have to worry about it, that's worth the weight in gold.
So let me ask you a question. As you know, I'm an accredited financial counselor, and in that capacity, sometimes I'm helping people try to figure out how to pay off debt. As a daily money manager, would that be something that you would manage for somebody as well?
Some people who are daily money managers do that. It
Mhm.
depends. We all have our particular specialties and our particular niches. So a number of daily money managers will do that, and they're specifically trained or dealing with debt management, and making sure that things go that way. That's not a particular niche of mine, although
Mhm.
I can either help with the basics
Right.
or I know where to send the person. That's another thing that we do.
Mhm.
We can spot issues and be able to direct people to needed professionals who are elsewhere in our networks that we build.
So it sounds to me like you're not just concerned with the outgo of money. You're also concerned with income that's coming in. You're handling both sides of it.
Absolutely. If you're not getting your social security check for some reason, or if something's going on with your insurance, or you're not getting paid for your insurance claims, or and so on and so on and so on, where your
Mhm.
money's not coming in,
Right.
that's as much of a problem as if it's not going out to the right places.
I
And a
see.
daily money manager makes sure that inflow and outflow are all happening correctly.
Okay, great. So now we kind of established what aspects of money you manage. All right. Um, let's get into some of the mechanics of that. Um, how do you actually pay somebody's bills? I mean, do they set up separate accounts, or what does that look like?
One of the things that I tell people is I've been a rabbi now for 22 years, and I've done lots of weddings. And you're
Mhm.
probably thinking, what do weddings have to do with daily money management? Well, in all the weddings that I've done over 22 years as a rabbi, I've never done the same wedding twice. There's always at least one thing that's different. There's always at least different things that work with different people. And the same goes with the people that I work with as a daily money manager.
Mhm.
Some people, I will sit there, I'll open the mail with them, I'll go through the mail, and with a client or two, they feel most comfortable where I write out the checks and they sign them. Other
Oh,
people, it's
okay.
all done through bill pay. For some people, it's in person. For others, it's virtual. There are many different ways, and it depends upon what people feel comfortable with. Some people do feel more comfortable if they set up their own account, a bill paying account, and that's the money that the
Mhm.
daily money manager has access to. Other people, they grow to trust us, and they say, look, you're my guy, you're or my woman, you're helping me, and
Mhm.
I trust you, and we work together on the ways to have access so that we can pay everything.
I see. Okay. Well, you bring up a very good point. All right. You bring up the word trust. And you know, most people have a problem um trusting other people, especially if they don't know them very well, with their money. All right. Or giving them control of their money if they're not family. Which is not necessarily always the best solution. Okay. Um, uh, plenty of plenty of lawsuits and gossip pages about that. Um, but um, but what what should a potential client look for if they're going to consider somebody to be a money manager for them in this way?
Well, first of all, you bring up a very good point. Often it may not be something negative, but often a relative is not the right person to be the person to handle this for someone who is older. That it's better for a variety of reasons, maybe including trust, that someone who is outside and objective is the person helping the client with their money management needs. But in terms of trust and looking for the right daily money manager, certainly see if they're a member of the American Association of Daily Money Managers. This is a professional organization that has a code of ethics. And all of us who belong to this association abide by this code of ethics. We are all background checked. You need to be regularly background checked to be a member of our professional organization. You wouldn't go to a doctor probably who's not a member of the AMA. You wouldn't go to a lawyer who's not a member of the Bar Association. Also, going to a daily money manager who is a member of ADAM is incredibly important. Also, we have insurance. We have errors and omissions insurance. It's important to see and to make sure that we are insured, so that in case there is a mistake, then you are covered. And it's always good to ask for references, and to ask and say, who else have you worked with, and can I talk to some people in the community or people that you've served, to make sure that you're somebody who is legit and worthy of that trust. And finally, see if they're ingrained in the community and part of the community. I know, for me in Boston, I'm here for a long time, and my wife works at Brandeis University, and I'm a rabbi, so you get a feel of someone, and when you see that they're ingrained in the community, it's also say, okay, this is most likely somebody that I can trust.
Sounds great. Let's stay on this topic. When we come back from the break, we'll be right back. You're listening to Marc Gertz and Jeff Wildstein on Reverse Your Thinking on KMET, and we'll be right back after this. And we're back on Reverse Your Thinking. I'm your host, Marc Gertz, and we're talking to Jeff Wildstein, who is a daily money manager. And we're reversing our thinking about what that means and what the potential is for utilizing somebody with his skills to improve the quality of our life, not necessarily just when we're older, but at any given time, if it makes sense. Jeff, I wanted to ask you, there's been a lot written recently about how a comprehensive financial plan should include a life coach. People are talking more and more about getting life coaches involved in their planning for both retirement and acquisition and accumulation of funds. All right. It sounds to me that in some ways a daily money manager also works in sort of a quasi coaching role. Am I wrong about that, or what?
In some ways, I think yes. We do a lot of speaking with our clients, particularly about their budget. And any budget that you make is not just a sheet with numbers, but it is a reflection of values. So certainly when you talk about how much you're going to spend or on this or that, how much you're going to be saving, it's more than just the numbers often. And particularly that's where my background as a rabbi comes in, which is working with people and listening with people and understanding where people are thinking and what people are thinking about. So I think there is an element of coaching that's involved. It's not quite the same as a life coach, but it's at least in our area, within the bounds of our area, you could say that there's some of that happens for sure.
Part of the reason that I asked you that is because I'm having a little, and I think maybe our audience might be a little bit too, having a little bit trouble like visualizing this, because on the one hand it's like okay, so he pays the bills, but on the other hand, do you have contact with all of your clients every month, or is some of it just automatic. You get the bills and you write checks and you never talk to them at all? Or is it something in the middle?
Personally, I have contact with my clients every month at a minimum.
Okay.
And I think that that's important. And it's certainly important about the way I have my practice, that I am working with people and that I'm in communication, and it's not just, someone who's working at a desk somewhere gets
Mhm.
everything done and sends you a bill every month.
Okay,
Um,
so let's talk about
very personal.
the mechanics again. Do you, I know you mentioned that some people you sit down with them and basically you write the checks and then they sign them and you mail them out. Um, but if somebody didn't want to do that, or you talked earlier about having, executive clients that are just too busy. All right. So what does that look like? Do the bills come to you and then you just pay them online? How does that work?
For some people, that is a possibility. That everything, that a lot of things are set up on auto pay, and the daily money manager is just making sure that everything went through correctly,
Uh-huh.
and then maybe having a conversation or issuing a report once a month. So that's a way. It depends for me, and in my practice, it depends on the preference of the client. So I have clients who want to see me on a regular basis, and I go to their homes and I help them.
Oh, you literally go to their homes?
Literally go to their homes.
Okay.
And that's actually the majority of my clients, particularly elderly clients. For
Mhm.
other daily money managers and for a couple of my clients, it's all done virtually and through Zoom.
Oh, okay. All right.
So
Um, you mentioned earlier that you're based in Boston, right?
yes, right outside of Boston.
Okay, does that mean that you only work with clients in Massachusetts?
I actually have a client in New Hampshire.
There we go.
So I will drive a certain radius,
Uh-huh.
particularly, and I've always liked driving, so I have
Mhm.
no problem driving a little bit
Okay.
farther than maybe other daily money managers do.
All right.
But if I can't drive, if somebody were to ask me out in Western Massachusetts, and that's
Mhm.
a little bit more of what we call schlep,
Yeah.
then there are people out there, I know colleagues who can help people and serve.
Well,
We together
okay, well,
a lot of
let's take it a little more extreme. I mean, let's suppose there was somebody that didn't want that kind of hand-holding service. They just want you to, take care of their stuff remotely, and they're in Florida or California. Is there any reason why you couldn't service them there?
There is no reason I couldn't service them there.
Okay.
I could help them, and we could do virtually everything, if not everything virtually.
Okay.
And do
So
it through email, and if there was a need for communication.
gotcha.
Absolutely.
So if you have adult children in Boston or New York, and they have retired family in Arizona or Florida, there's no reason that they couldn't call upon you or any other daily money manager to help them with that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, in the mortgage business, we're licensed by states. And in the law, it's the same way. Attorneys have licenses in different states. The same with the insurance business. How does licensing work in terms of daily money management?
As far as I am aware, there is no licensing requirement. So we are people who provide a service. It's
Mhm.
established by contract and under those sorts of criteria. So as far as I know, that there is no licensing requirement unless you have someone who's going to act in a legal fiduciary manner, and then
Okay.
you get into those sorts of issues.
Okay. So that goes back to what you said earlier about why it's so important that if somebody does look for a daily money manager, that they want to make sure they're a member of the association, and they want to make sure that they have errors and omissions insurance and references. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I get that. Okay. But on the other hand, it allows you to work anywhere in the country.
Yes.
Okay. Um, if somebody in our audience wants to get a hold of you, and they want to talk to you about using your services, what's the best way for them to reach you?
The best way for them to reach me is to go onto my website, www.KAVOD, KAVOD, DMM, as in Mary.com. Very easy to find on Google, and there's a way that they can send me a note or set up an appointment, and I'd be happy to talk with anyone.
Terrific. And lastly, I have to ask, what does KAVOD mean?
I'm glad you asked. Kavod means honor. It is the same Hebrew root as kibud av va'em, honor your father and mother. And so when I was looking for what I was going to name my company, that is the highest standard that I could possibly think of to go on that commandment. So honor is what I try to give to each of my clients.
Terrific. Jeff, thank you so much for being with us today. You've really shared an enormous amount of terrific information, and we'll be right back after this. You're listening to Reverse Your Thinking. And welcome back. This is Marc Gertz, and this is Reverse Your Thinking, where we take any topic and turn it on its head and change the way we might look at it or think about it. Before the break, we had Jeff Wildstein on, who's a daily money manager, and I hope you got a lot out of our meeting with him today about the value of a daily money manager and why you might want to consider it for yourself or for members of your family. We didn't get into it too deeply, but I can tell you that daily money managers, as a rule, are fairly economical. They're definitely, I'm going to call an affordable luxury. But on the other hand, they're not really a luxury. They're not really a luxury. If your life is so busy that you are having trouble making time to pay your bills on time, even if you don't have any financial problems, you might want to consider a daily money manager. If you're getting older and maybe a little bit forgetful and you're having problems remembering to sit down and pay your bills, you might want to consider a daily money manager. If you're having problems writing, if your handwriting is getting difficult as you get older, you might want to consider using a daily money manager. These are all good reasons to do these things. And I think Jeff made a great point when he said that you have other professionals in your life. I know it may sound a little bit crazy to pay somebody to pay your bills. I know that it sounds like an incredible luxury, but it isn't. It isn't. If you're older, you know, if you're in your 60s or your 70s, that means that you've been spending, I don't know how many hours a month paying your bills for over 50 years. Over 50 years. How many people out there like spending 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 or 8 hours a month paying their bills? I mean, maybe there are some folks out there that actually enjoy sitting down and doing that. I don't happen to be one of them, but but maybe you are. Maybe you get a kick out of writing all those checks and putting them in the mail or going onto your online account and sending them out. Maybe that's how you get your jollies. But if you got back 8 hours a month because you didn't have to worry about your finances, that's 8 hours you could spend with your grandkids. That's 8 hours you could spend in a museum. That's 8 hours you could spend having dinner with a friend or with your wife or your husband, instead of sitting there and juggling finances. One of the reasons why people like to age in place is because they want to enjoy their space. They want to enjoy the time they have left. And one of the interesting things about getting older is that one day you wake up and you realize that you've got more time behind you than you have in front of you. How do you want to spend that time? What do you want to do? How are you going to juggle your funds? Well, looking into a daily money manager to take that completely off of your plate might be a very viable thing to do. You know, it certainly would be a lot less expensive than having in-home care in the house if you didn't need it 24 hours, 7 days a week. It might be a very economical way to take something off your plate that right now is causing you an enormous amount of stress. So anyway, Jeff gave you his information. If you don't want to call Jeff, there's also the organization, the American Association of Daily Money Managers. You can look them up online, and I have no doubt they will be happy to refer you to one of their members. Okay. We were talking earlier about aging in place and options. And my hope and my wish for you is that you look at all of your options and look at them before you need to do these things. You know, it's not uncommon that people in their 20s and 30s and 40s and sometimes 50s and later don't have a will. They don't have a trust. They don't have a health directive. They don't have these things set up. Their family doesn't know where to find them. They don't have a safe deposit box. As Jeff said, they don't know where the key to it is if they have one. It's time, folks, to get some organization in your life. And you need to do it before you need it. When there is a crisis is not when you need to find these things. You need to do it when there's no reason to do it. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that old joke about the traveling salesman and the farmer. And the traveling salesman's going around the country, and there's a big storm coming. And he stops at a farmer's house and he asks the farmer, he says, do you mind if I sleep in your barn overnight until the weather gets better? And the farmer says, no, that's fine. And he goes into the barn and the roof's leaking. And he tells the farmer, he says, there's a leak in your roof. I want to fix that. And the farmer says, well, I can't do that because it's raining. And then the farmer comes back, and then the salesman comes back on a sunny day and asks the farmer to stay in the barn again. And he says, did you fix the roof? And the farmer says, why should I fix the roof? It's not raining today. You've been listening to Reverse Your Thinking. I hope we've succeeded. I'm Marc Gertz, your host. We'll be back next week. You take care.
Where the living is good.